downward spiral, it appears businesses are looking for lucrative markets elsewhere. One such company is the South African-based rail and freight company TheloDB. The company has just signed an agreement with the government of Ghana to rebuild and extend its railway network at the western side of Ghana. This is aimed at boosting the Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement, which desperately needs rail infrastructure in order to succeed. TheloDB's project with Ghana will facilitate the movement of that country's commodities like iron ore, bauxite and cocoa for export. Infrastructure on the continent is at a poor state, so according to the African Development Bank, it will take between 130 to 170 billion US dollars to repair. For more on this deal, let's get in touch with TheloDB Chairman Ronnie Ntuli. Thank you very much for coming through.
Good evening, Colin.
All right, give us a background of this project. How did it come about? And of course, on the fortunate side of it, you being chosen to clinch it.
So thank you very much. I think your introduction was extremely valuable in highlighting the background of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement and the continent's dire need for infrastructure capacity. Those points are absolutely correct. With this in mind, we have been, as a company, we've identified the railway sector within the infrastructure space and transportation and logistics as a critical area that needed development, and one that represented a unique commercial opportunity while supporting development on the continent. So for many years now, we've been in the railway industry, starting off with a company called Telo Rolling Stock, which supported rolling stock manufacturers out of South Africa who manufacture rolling stock. We would buy the rolling stock and we would place it in different markets on the continent. More broadly than that, we realized that there was a need also for developing railway infrastructure and for operating rail infrastructure. So we've partnered with a leading global company called Deutsche Bahn, originally out of Germany, but present really on all continents. So we've partnered with them exclusively for the continent of Africa in order to support development of the railway sector. Ghana, a very, very important market for us, strategically located, with resources and a stable country. We approached the government of Ghana with a proposition to support them develop their railway sector because of the capacity that we have. And it's taken quite a while, but the government of Ghana, I think, has realized the capability that we have and the proposition that we've put to them to support development of the railway sector. And in this regard, we've signed a memorandum of understanding for us to support development of that very strategic corridor in Ghana called the Western Corridor.
Okay, so then is this a vote of no confidence against South Africa, given that recently Minister Tito Mboweni put together an infrastructure-related budget to really boost investment in that sector in a way? So then would one take this as a capital exodus, so to say?
So not at all, Colin. In fact, to the contrary, we are of the firm view that South Africa represents an enormous opportunity. We think efficient transportation and logistics in South Africa represents a really massive opportunity. We're extremely excited about South Africa and very interested in also mobilizing capital for investment in our country, certainly. And that's part of why we've also partnered with Deutsche Bahn, who have 180 years of experience present in dominate Europe, present in North America, South America, Asia, Australasia, and to bring that capacity to the continent of Africa. South Africa is our own view as an African company is that South Africa represents a unique platform from which our destiny as a country economically is interlinked with the continent of Africa. So because we are making investments in other jurisdictions in Africa doesn't mean that we have no confidence in South Africa. South Africa is a very interesting proposition for us. We think it's something that we certainly would like to pursue.
How does the regulatory environment compare in other jurisdictions, given that such framework would also influence how the deal is executed in terms of the give and take, given that you won't be a local company in as far as the supply side of things is concerned, and in as far as the supply and the value chain of the whole industry is concerned. Does this really put you on a front foot in order to be able to confidently say that you are okay with the regulatory framework and the ease of doing business in a country other than South Africa?
Yeah, so the railway sector is a very interesting sector because, capacity and experience, it's a long-term investment sector. Capacity and experience matters. Beyond capital, you have to have the depth of technical experience. And hence our partnering with sort of amongst the leading railway companies in the world. From that point of view, the intention is that we are going to train Africans because the railway sector on the continent has been ignored for a very long time. What we need to do is work with tertiary institutions on the continent. This is our ambition, including our own country, South Africa, to expand the capacity, the cadre of railway expertise. That includes the point that you're raising, which is the regulatory capacity to oversee railways, whether it's safety, whether it is the strategy of where railways goes to. Is it vertical integration? Is it vertical separation? Do you have a single operator, infrastructure owner, regulator, or do you separate those tasks? I mean, just from a regulatory point of view, that sort of thinking and how you separate that is quite important. What we are finding on the continent definitively is what I call fertile ground, where African governments are saying railways is strategic. We have bulk commodities in most parts. We have very long distances to move the freight, both for export and for import, and for import and for export. Rail is a strategic proposition because of environmentally friendly position of rail. What we do need to do, though, therefore, is to build the capacity of railways. So they sit down with us and they say, how do we, the full spectrum of railway, from a feasibility study, design and engineering, testing and commissioning, project oversight, operations and maintenance, can you bring the capacity to help us and then create the capacity in country where we're now able to regulate and oversee the railway sector? So there's a really willing...
sorry to come in there. Do you hope this then would mean that out of Ghana you'll be able to expand to other countries, given that for the intra-Africa trade, obviously involving movement of goods would be cross-border?
Yeah, so very important question, Colin. So we are in discussions. We're having direct engagements currently in at least 3 other countries. We're having discussions in Southern Africa, in East Africa, and in West Africa around developing new corridors. Railways, we think, will play a very important part in terms of upskilling, skills development, training. I think it'll play an important part in terms of forming a backbone for the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. It'll form an important development component because the supply chain into the railway sector is very large and it's very broad. So the opportunity to catalyze other industries beyond only what the goods that you're moving, that in terms of supplying a viable railway operation, is also broad. So the answer is yes. We are talking to other governments. We are looking at other trade corridors. But what we're also doing is we are providing expertise to existing railway networks where we can support them with what we call, for example, operational efficiencies. Because if you look at the map of railways in Africa, Southern Africa is quite developed in terms of rails, but operational efficiencies still come short in many ways. So the ability to support national railway operators with operational efficiencies is something that we're also offering to the market.
Right. Congratulations are in order, and of course compliments to you and the team. We wish you the best of luck. Hopefully very soon we'll be able to take the midnight train to Accra in Ghana. Thank you very much for making time to speak to us.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's Ronnie Ntuli, who is TheloDB Chairman, speaking to us about the deal that they have signed with the Ghanaian government regarding a railway deal that will be unfolding very soon.